In October 1993, in Doha, Qatar, Japan led Iraq 2-1 in the final minute of their last World Cup qualifier. 1 point separated them from USA 94. Iraq equalized. Japan collapsed to the turf. They had never qualified for a World Cup. Their best players were amateurs working in factories. They called it the Tragedy of Doha. 11 months later, the J-League launched. 12 years after that, the Japan Football Association announced something that sounded delusional. Japan would win the World Cup by 2050. And then they began writing checks. This is not a story about football. This is the audit of Japan's $500 million industrial project to manufacture a World Cup contender. This is the audit. To understand what Japan is doing at this World Cup, you need to understand what they decided in 2005. In 1992, before Japan had ever qualified for a World Cup, the JFA published its 100-year vision. The goal was simple on paper, absurd in scope: win the World Cup by 2092. In 2005, they accelerated the timeline. The JFA declaration moved the target forward to 2050. The reasoning was coldly rational. If Japan waited for talent to emerge organically, it would never catch Europe or South America. Talent would have to be manufactured. The plan had 3 pillars. First, the J-League, which had launched in 1993 with 10 clubs and corporate backing from Mitsubishi, Nissan, and Panasonic. Second, a national coach education system built on the JFA coaching license program, designed to standardize methodology from under-6 academies to the professional level. Third, and most importantly, a pipeline to Europe. Japanese players needed to play where the game was fastest, most physical, and most technically demanding. The J-League would develop them. Europe would finish them. The JFA's midterm plan for 2023 to 2026 runs 46 pages. It covers everything from grassroots participation rates to the number of Japanese referees officiating in UEFA competitions. It is not a football document. It is an industrial policy document that happens to be about football. Japan has now qualified for 8 consecutive World Cups. Since 2023, the national team has never dropped out of the FIFA Top 20. The machine is working. In the summer of 2018, a Japanese internet company called DMM.com purchased a provincial Belgian football club from a town of 40,000 people. The club was Sint-Truiden VV. It had never won a major trophy. It had never played in the Champions League. It was 94 years old and entirely unremarkable. That club became the most important piece of infrastructure in Japanese football. Takayuki Tateshi, the CEO appointed by DMM, flew to Tokyo for his first meeting with Japan's national team coach, Hajime Moriyasu. He said something that sounded like a provocation. "I want the center line of the Japan national team to all be Sint-Truiden players." That was 2018. 7 years later, Japan started 7 Sint-Truiden alumni against the Netherlands at the World Cup. The numbers are staggering. Sint-Truiden has signed 29 Japanese players since the DMM takeover. 26 made the first team. Between them, they have accumulated 132 appearances. The economics are equally precise. Tomiyasu arrived at Sint-Truiden, moved to Bologna for 9 million euros, then to Arsenal, then to Ajax. Wataru Endo went from Sint-Truiden to Stuttgart, then captained Liverpool. Daichi Kamada went from Sint-Truiden to Eintracht Frankfurt, won the Europa League, then moved to Lazio and Crystal Palace. Zion Suzuki, the goalkeeper who faced the Netherlands, arrived at Sint-Truiden and transferred to Parma for 8 million euros. Kato Nakamura went to Reims in League One. The pipeline economics are simple and devastating. buy players from the J-League at development prices. Give them European minutes in a league that is physical, technical, and scouted by every top 5 club on the continent. Sell them at European market value. The club's ownership has stated that where Sint-Truiden once needed to sell 5 or 6 players per season to generate 15 million euros in profit, it now only needs to sell 2. The yield per player has more than doubled. Sint-Truiden is 40 minutes from Brussels, 35 minutes from Liège, 30 minutes from the Dutch border, 25 minutes from the German border. It sits at the geographic intersection of 4 of Europe's top 7 leagues. The club was not chosen for its history. It was chosen for its coordinates. Let that land for a moment. A Japanese corporation bought a century-old Belgian football club in a town most Europeans cannot find on a map, installed a CEO who told the national team coach he wanted to supply the spine of the team, and 7 years later, at a World Cup, Japan's starting 11 against the Netherlands contained more Sint-Truiden alumni than players from any single J-League club. This is not scouting. This is industrial engineering. The talent pipeline is the visible story. What nobody talks about is the money that pays for it. The JFA's operating income for fiscal year 2025 reached 23.4 billion yen. That is approximately $220 million. It surpassed the Japan Olympic Committee for the first time. Sponsorship revenue for the 2023 to 2026 cycle reached 43.1 billion yen, a 16% increase over the previous cycle and more than double what the JFA earned during the 2014 Brazil cycle. After Japan reached the round of 16 in Qatar, 3 new sponsors signed on: ANA, the airline; Mitsui Fudosan, the real estate giant; APA Hotel. The JFA operates a scarcity model. Only 1 sponsor per industry. All slots are currently filled. International brands are on a waiting list. Kunihiko Motegi, the JFA's marketing director, put it bluntly, as the national team performs well, more companies want to become partners. The stronger Japan is, the greater our negotiating power with other countries. That last sentence matters. Japan is monetizing its football diplomacy. During the England friendly before the World Cup, the JFA used virtual advertising boards on the broadcast feed and negotiated to keep all that revenue for itself for the first time. It partnered with Shiseido, the cosmetics company, to launch JFA coaching courses in Vietnam and Singapore. Football development is becoming an export product. The Sint-Truiden pipeline is the flagship, but it is only one piece of a larger machine. There are now 150 Japanese players across Europe, 25 in Belgium alone. 15 of the 27 players in the current World Cup squad play in the top 5 European leagues, 9 in Germany, 3 in England, 2 in France, 1 in Italy. This did not happen by accident. It happened because Japan spent 30 years building pathways and then spent the money to place players on them. European clubs have noticed. PSG is opening an academy in Japan. Barcelona is planning one. Borussia Mönchengladbach has established a presence in Hokkaido. When asked about this, Takayuki Tateshi responded with the same surgical calm he brought to his first meeting with Moriyasu. I am planning to open a Sint-Truiden Academy in Japan. We want to get it up and running as soon as possible because European clubs are starting. There is a tension here that the JFA is only beginning to confront. If European clubs start signing Japanese 18-year-olds directly, the J-League loses its role in the development chain. The very pipeline Japan built could be bypassed by the clubs it was designed to supply. Tateshi addressed this directly. There is not one single story of a player succeeding who went straight to Europe. The J-League is very important to their development. The question is whether European clubs agree or care. Japan has built the most sophisticated national football infrastructure outside of Europe and South America. The coaching system, the Belgian laboratory, the sponsorship empire, the 150 players scattered across the continent. It is a machine that converts institutional investment into technical development with an efficiency no other nation has matched. The question is whether infrastructure alone wins World Cups. Japan has never made it past the round of 16. In Qatar, they beat Germany. They beat Spain. They topped a group that included both of them. Then they faced Costa Rica in the match they were favored to win, and Moriyasu set the team up defensively. They lost 1-0. Against Costa Rica, the same team that had just dismantled two of the most storied football nations on earth could not impose itself on a CONCACAF opponent it was expected to beat. That is not a tactical failure. That is a psychological pattern. Japan beats Germany, beats Spain, beats Brazil in a friendly, beats England, then hesitates against Costa Rica. The difference between Japan and the nations that win World Cups is not infrastructure anymore. It is the conviction that you belong in the quarterfinal, the semifinal, the final, that your presence there is not a surprise but an inevitability. The 2026 World Cup is the test. Japan opened against the Netherlands and drew 2-2 in a match they could have won. They dismantled Tunisia 4-0. The quarterfinal is within reach. If they break through, the $500 million investment will have delivered the return it was designed for. If they do not, the audit will ask the same question the JFA has been dodging since 2005. Is the problem the machine, or the belief that the machine is enough? In 1993, Japan collapsed on a pitch in Doha, having never reached a World Cup. Their best players worked in factories. They had no professional league. 33 years later, they fielded a starting 11 against the Netherlands drawn entirely from Europe's top 7 leagues. The journey from the Tragedy of Doha to a World Cup quarterfinal cost approximately $500 million and took 3 decades. It was never about football. It was about what a nation is willing to spend to rewrite its own history. The audit is complete. Meeting adjourned.